Hello and welcome to another tutorial video. It's been a while since I last made one of these. And this time we're gonna show the brand new tool from XRAY. It's called the horizontal rear body pose gauge, which works as a template for mounting body shells for the horizontal body mounting position. And a lot of drivers find it tricky or difficult to mount the body in this way, with the posts coming out of the rear of the body shell instead of going through the top in the vertical position. So for this reason, we made this tool. It makes it a lot simpler, easier, and most of all, it makes it possible to mount the body in the exact same way every time. And let's get to it. Let's see how we can use this tool to mount this brand new body shell right here. Okay, so let's take a look at the gauge. We have three different number scales here. The one right in the middle is for checking the rear height of the body shell from the board to the little edge or the rear corner here of the rear bumper, which I'm going to show you how to do once the body shell is mounted. We then have this gauge here, which goes from 5 to 15, so that's to check the height of the body shell from the floor to the edge of the front lip and the sides, to make sure that you have good clearance to the ground, so you can adjust the height of the body shell depending on the track surface. And also we have these two gauges here, which they're used to center the gauge between these two rear wing mounts here. So as you can see, it's quite easy to make sure that it's centered thanks to these lines, these very fine lines, which you can use to center the body shell inside of the gauge. And of course, this is compatible with all popular body shells on the market, but in this case I'm using the Extreme Twister. So once this looks centered here, I got these lines right in the middle of the body shell, and I always use these wing mounts as gauges. Okay, I'm happy with how centered that is. Then we take a look at these two holes here. We're gonna use a Sharpie to mark the spot for the holes. And that way the holes are perfectly in the center, everything's square. And we're going to use a hoodie small body reamer to make these holes. Since this is a ultra light body shell, I'm going to be very cautious as I punch these holes in the body shell. So keep in mind this tool is only compatible with the XRAY X4, because the distance between the holes varies between cars. So this is not compatible with the XRAY T4, unfortunately. And then once again, make sure you're careful when you punch these holes, since the lightweight body shells that we use today are very thin in this area. Okay, that's all done. We have the holes made, and now we can mount this body shell on the car. Okay, now the body is all mounted up here, as you can see. I've cut out all the wheel wells, I've cut the sides and the front lip, everything's good to go. But now I'm going to demonstrate how we can use this gauge with the two scales that I showed you earlier. So for example, here in the rear, we can check the height of the body shell. So you can see where the little edge of the bumper here lines up with 65 millimeters here. That means that this edge is at 65 millimeters height, which is a bit high. We usually run this point between 62 and 65 millimeters for the twister body. And you can see on our setup sheets that we often play with this height. Also depending on the roof height rules that your race is using, you may need to adjust it to make the body shell at the legal height. So in this case, 65 here. You can adjust this by moving these posts up and down, because there's a slot here on the XRAY X4 horizontal body post mounting, so you can easily adjust this individually left and right until you have this particular height the same left and right, and you can also use this to tune the handling of the car. Lowering the rear of the body shell reduces downforce because you'll have less of a rake effect on the body, and this will free up the rear and will give you more steering. So that's mainly recommended for higher grip conditions. Whereas for lower grip, you should aim for a bit higher body shell height to get a bit of that rake effect, to increase the downforce, to get more rear grip and more overall traction. The other little gauge we have here is the height, which you can use to check the sides and the front lip of the body. So you can see, for example, here we can check how high the side of the body is, the clearance. So here it's close to 10 millimeters, which is a good clearance for most tracks and conditions. Sometimes for black carpet in the US, CRC black carpet, you need to use a bit higher to have better clearance and less rubbing. And you can also use this in the front here to check the height of the body shell. So in this case, we can see here that the front height is obviously a bit lower than the sides, so here it's between 7 and 8 millimeters. So you can use this gauge to check the front lip height, the sides of the body, as well as the corner of the rear bumper to check the height of the rear of the body shell. So that's how we use the horizontal body post gauge from XRAY.